Hey friends, David Paulides, CanAm Missing Project, copyrighted edition for our video channel. We're watching Huck TV. Huck's the boss, Huck's the executive producer, and there she is. And if she looks a little whiter than normal, today was bath day. Yeah, we went to the doggy wash, and she actually likes it, and she doesn't fight it at all. The issue is that when you're in the middle of the wash and she decides to shake, whoa, duck and cover, because she's going to wipe you out with all the water that comes off her. But this is also shed time because the temps are rising, and it was a good time to take her down there, but she's way whiter than she was when we went in there. And that kind of takes her out of her too. She gets tired and after a wash, so she'll sleep good tonight. So that's Huck for today. Huck, your fans want to know, are you okay? Yeah? Did you have fun today? Did you have fun? Say, Dad, it was cool. Yeah? Oh, yeah. Yeah, good girl. Oh, you're a good girl. Yeah, you're a good girl. Oh, man, you just like scratches, huh? Good girl. Yeah, you're a good girl. You're a good girl. You're a good girl. Tell the fans you'll hang out. You'll be a good girl for us, okay? Thank you, girl. We'll come back to you in a minute. And of course, we have the Bigfoot Caribbean Cruise. Myself, Jeff Meldrum, Ryan Mayor, Ryan Goboleski. Just freeze frame that right there on the bottom right, and scan it in, and it'll tell you everything you need to know about the cruise. November of 2025. It's in the Caribbean. It'll be super fun. Please do it. And I've got to, by contract, I have to publicize that, otherwise I'll be in big trouble. But I'm selfish about this, I'm sorry, but got a much bigger thing on my agenda right now, and that is our fourth movie, Missing 411 National Parks. Go to Kickstarter, kickstartersOnewood.com. In their search bar, type in Missing 411 National Parks, and there's all sorts of levels that you can contribute on. $5, $10,000. You want to be in the movie? You want a speaking role? I'll accommodate that. You own a company and you want to get a sponsorship opportunity for that company? I'll accommodate that. Hey, we have to pay for this thing one way or another, right? So we try to be reasonable with everybody. We did it with the first movie, we'll do it here. Now, several of you have emailed me over the last month about some yahoos on the internet that decided to attack me. It's happened every year for the last 10 years. And that's the best thing they can do in their life. They can't go out and do something themselves, so they're going to find somebody to attack and go after them. Let me be blatantly honest with you. I've covered 750 cases here on YouTube and 1,500 cases in my books. Have I made a mistake in 1 or 2 or 10 of those cases? It sure is a possibility. Anybody could. Am I infallible? No. Do I have intent to defraud or leave things out? No. Friends, there's so many cases out there. I wouldn't waste my time trying to befuddle you, and these people are idiots. And I don't even want to know about them. Somebody, years ago, I was at a conference, one of the first conferences I ever went to. And I was sitting next to somebody very famous in the UFO world. I knew who this man was, and I was intimidated by him because he was such a great researcher. And back in those days, I wasn't very well known, and I'm not very well known now, but back then I wasn't. And his table just had hundreds of people a day coming towards him. He was a super nice man. He's since passed on. But we were talking, and I said, there's so many things out there about you that I've heard
And now that I've met you, they're completely not true. And I feel sorry for you that you've been the victim of this. You said, Dave, when you get to the top, everyone tries to knock you down. And I made it a point that I will never discuss it. I won't address it. I won't give them 1 minute of my time because I don't want to give them a platform to speak from. I don't want to give them any publicity. Probably the wisest advice I've ever had. So if you hear somebody knocking me down and you know it's bull, feel free to go up there and tear them down. But don't tell me about it. I don't want to know. Unless somebody is stealing my stuff, and then I want to know. But if they're just shooting at the mouth, I don't care. Let them. They're trying to get views. They're trying to get people to watch their show. They're trying to make money off me. That's all it is. Enough of that. You know, we're all just trying to get by in this world. Day by day, moment by moment, hour by hour. Life's a struggle. Sometimes the struggle is overwhelming. It was for my son. Ben's struggles were always my struggles. Because I loved him. I cared about him. I worried about him. And even after he's passed on, it's now my struggle alone. And I have good days and I have horrible days. And I talk to you about it because I've had hundreds of you tell me how much it helps them seeing somebody talk it through. And I got this today. It's these kind of letters that make it all worthwhile sitting here talking to you. Dear Dave, your past YouTube video, which talked about hope, was a real tearjerker. This really hit home with me. I too am a retired police officer, 33 years. My wife and I purchased a German short-hair pointer puppy that was born December 15th, 2020. We took delivery of our 7.5-week-old pup, Chester, on February 6, 2021. Little did I know just how important that little guy was going to be to me. Exactly 3 years to the day, February 6, 2024, my wife passed away at 67 years old. What are the odds of that happening? God knew that when we bought him and brought him home, in 3 years exactly, I would need him to get through this rough time. We've been married for 45 years in October 2023. Chester truly has been a godsend to me, all 75 pounds. I've included a picture of my beautiful wife with Chester the day we brought him home and another of me just recently. I really enjoy your YouTube channel, especially your books. I have all of them and all 3 of your DVDs. I live outside of Detroit. I have state land around me in northern Michigan. If you ever get to Michigan, please look me up. I'm a true believer in Bigfoot. I have been ever since I read the Reader's Digest article in junior high in January '69. I have that issue that I found and purchased off eBay. I also have a library of 140 Bigfoot books that I've accumulated. I have several on Dogman. I mean it when I say, if you get this way, please look me up. Keep up the great work. I look forward to seeing a Michigan book soon. God bless and be safe. I won't give the man's name, but there he is with the dog that saved his life. That is cool. That is very, very cool. Now, think about this. I've had several people remind me many times that dog in reverse is God. It's a gift from God, for sure. For sure. Today, Huck and I were in the car going to the doggy wash. And she knows when we pull up in front of this building, she knows what's going on. She actually was excited. Every time I'm surprised because I think she's going to fight it. She never does. I think she likes it, but takes it out of her. So guys, for the ones that write to me that they hate the letters, I'm sorry. Those kind of letters I'm going to read to you. Because I feel a kinship with that man and what's happened to him. All right, let's get into the cases. Thanks for that letter, by the way. We have 2 cases for you today. They're different. First one is a man named Harvey Estabrook, 68 years old, missing November 16th, 1955. He lived in a place called Steve's Mountain, New Brunswick. He was born in Midget Station, New Brunswick, and he came to a place called Steve's Mountain in 1950. He had success running lumber crews, buying property, logging areas. He lived in a home at the base of Steve's Mountain, and he owned a large chunk of land. He had 5 daughters and 1 son. He enjoyed the outdoors immensely, and he enjoyed forestry and hunting. Let's see if I can find this one. Oh, here we go. I always try to draw you a comparison. So here's Steve's Mountain right here in New Brunswick. And then right here, that's Oak Island. Remember the show where they're digging for treasure? Yeah, Oak Island. Here's Halifax, Nova Scotia. And I actually have people that have disappeared down in this area of Nova Scotia. So, and by the way, the distance between those areas is about 200 kilometers. A lot of water out there. So November 16th, 1955, at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Harvey told his family that he was going to take a walk out in the back on his property, go hunting. Wife said, well, okay, make sure you're back by 6. He said, no problem. Well, the home sits out in a large meadow, and it's about 200 yards from the home to the forest line. And he didn't come back for dinner. And the family knew something was really wrong because Harvey knew that area better than most of you know your own little backyard. He'd lived in that area for 40 years. Hunted it probably every year for 40 years. Well, the family went back and searched. Didn't find anything. He had no dementia, no Alzheimer's. He occasionally the family pointed out to the RCMP that he would faint. But it's like he would faint, graciously fall to the ground, and wake right up. Said it wasn't a long time for him, but they said it wasn't a regular occurrence. Okay. Well, they searched until 9 p.m. that night. RCMP from Moncton comes out, starts to take a report. They said he was in good health, but he was a 68-year-old man. First officer on scene confirmed that the family had heard no shots fired. They explained that he had been in this area and hiked that area hundreds of times, and they didn't believe it was possible that he was lost. So the officer's taking these notes, and he's thinking in the back of his mind, okay, I'm going to have search and rescue people coming out soon, and I've got to explain this to them, and we have to justify how we're going to search for this. Well, he starts calling Moncton. Moncton starts calling up off-duty officers, and at 1 a.m., RCMP had multiple officers on scene searching. Friends, that is impressive. There are not a whole lot of places in the U.S. that would get searchers out of bed in the middle of the night to search. Just the facts. I think they felt that because of his age, they needed to find him. In November, in New Brunswick, it can get pretty cold. The next day, at 7 a.m., RCMP brought an officer out with a canine. The dog was called Ranger, and they wanted him to be the first one in for the scent trail. And they also brought in 20 ground pounders that covered that area that they thought he'd be in. Now I want you to follow this logic. Searchers knew that Harvey agreed to be home by 6 p.m., right? He left at 3 p.m. That would mean that Harvey would walk out hour and a half. The reason you don't want to press it is, let's say you walk out for an hour, you kill a deer. Now you got to dress it. That takes some time. Promised your wife you'd be back by 6. You don't want to be late. You don't want to make her nervous. So he walked out away from the house for 60 to 90 minutes. No more. And this means he hiked, a best guess would be 2 miles at 68 years old through the woods in a mountain setting. Well, that day, the 17th, they didn't find anything. The next day, they had heavy snow that inundated the entire search area. Fredericton City police officers had responded, and they were the ground pounders for the day, along with 100 Steves area residents. People knew Harvey, and they loved him. And when they heard he was missing, they reported en masse. But snow and rain covered the entire search area. The higher they went up on the mountain, the heavier the snow began. Search and rescue was focusing on an area called Brook. It had 4 beaver dams. Searchers decided that if Harvey fell, he might be in one of those dams. So what they were going to do is they were going to break the dams, drain them, and make sure that he wasn't in there. Good plan. Well, they broke the dams open and were draining them. And there were comments that the beavers were so good that they kept fixing the dam before all the water drained out. But the guys were there and they kept breaking it open. Poor beavers. Busy as a beaver. And took 12 hours to drain the dams. He wasn't there. Stop for a second. When I lived in Colorado, there was an area up in the Rockies that I'd go to. It was a state park. Tons of beavers in there. I can remember one time sitting there parked, watching the beavers for a good hour and a half, absolutely mesmerized by their engineering of what they did. I'm not kidding you. It's amazing. One of these days, you get a chance, you look into how the engineering of a beaver dam works and how good they are. It's amazing. November 19th, 150 search and rescue ground pounders were out that day looking for Harvey. November 20th, heavy snow again hit the search area. Visibility was 10 feet or under, and the law enforcement in charge of the search ordered everybody off the mountain because it was too dangerous. And they temporarily suspended the search and rescue. Smart move. Don't want to get anybody hurt. You don't want to get anybody lost. Well, they suspended it for several days. November 30th, they had another one-day search. Locals and friends, over 100 people, went over an area that had been previously searched, went over new areas, nothing. Then they had another 2-day search, December 3rd and 4th. Bad weather hit the area on the 3rd. They still searched. 2-day effort found nothing. Searchers, family, friends essentially gave up. They didn't know where else to look. They thought they had covered all the areas that were possible. They couldn't understand where he might be. And then, May 27th, 1956, 4 miles from Harvey's home. Now let's stop right there. I've said this to you 100 times. I'm going to say it again. 4 air miles from a location in the woods on a mountain is really about 6 or 7 miles of hiking, because you don't hike in a straight line. Les Stroud, Survivor Man, taught me that, and I've had it validated 100 times by search and rescue people. So, 6, 7 walking miles. Two fishermen are fishing, and they found his body in the water. And here's the quote: "He's found in the very woods combed by search parties totaling as many as 200 searchers. Lewis Eagles and 2 fishing companions found the body lying face up, missing one of his rubber boots off his feet. He had bullets in his pocket, rifle wasn't found. His body was later ID'd by his brother. That night it was transported to a morgue at Moncton Hospital. A decision was made of no inquest." Don't quite understand that. June 1st, they had the burial services for Harvey. Massive turnout at the North River United Baptist Church near Steve's Mountain. Why did I tell you that story? Now, if you're a villager, you know already. First of all, he's found way outside the outer perimeter of the search. I'm sure they searched the area, but it wasn't in the primary search zone. That's a long way for that man to walk. Found missing 1 boot. Why didn't the canines track to the body? Because his scent is on that ground. He's found in water, but the real kicker, he's found in water face up. Now, I don't really care what you think you find on the internet. I'm telling you facts. Vast majority of the time, men are found in water face down. Women found face up. Some men are found standing straight up in water. It all is very weird. But to find a man face up in water, very odd. And many of the cases I wrote about, Missing 411, a sobering coincidence, were found that way. Nobody could explain it. I don't understand it. I don't understand why it happened. I never saw a cause of death of Harvey. I don't know. I find it highly suspicious. Point of separation when he walked out that door of his house. Okay. Oh, I don't think I ever showed you Harvey's picture, the best one I could find, but that was Harvey. Harvey Estabrook, 68 years old. Hard-working man in the lumber business. All right. Next case is very strange. Man's name was Volante Menlar. Here's weird. Half the articles said his name was Lloyd Minter. I thought honestly I was researching two people missing in the same area. It was that confusing. This is why you can't trust all the time what's said in articles. You just can't. Some reporters are not very studious. But anyhow, he disappeared October 18th, 1984, 10 kilometers north of Elkford, British Columbia. Where's that? That's a good question. Now, so I live right down in this area right here. Barely seen it on the map. This is Glacier National Park. This is Lake McDonald, where I make the Kickstarter film. And then up in here is Elkford. Roosevelt is the border check station that you can go from Canada and the US to Canada on, just outside of Eureka. So this area is right about in the Continental Divide. Got it? Now, Volante was married, had a wife named Georgia, and on February 4th, 1983, they had a son named Eric. It was actually in the paper, talked about it. Family lived in Coquitlam, BC. Everything talked about happy family. He was an iron worker with a specialty in structural steel. Iron workers make good money. And he was a long time hunter. Very comfortable in the woods. He had hunted this area near Elkwood since he was a young boy with his dad. He had learned to handle a firearm from his family and his dad. And he'd gone out into the woods alone dozens and dozens of times as an adult and as a young man. Now, there were 5 hunters in this hunting party that Volante was with, including a real good friend named Ken McGugan. Ken stated that Volante was very good in the bush and knew the area they were hunting in very well. And McGugan and Volante had actually been hunting partners for 7 years. So they trusted each other. They would do each other well. They'd look out for each other, etc. Well, what happened was McGugan and another hunter gave Volante a ride 2 miles from their hunting camp and dropped him off. And then they agreed that at a predetermined time they'd all arrive back in camp. And this was the 10th day that they were hunting together and their last day of hunting, and then they were going home. Well, the press asked Ken if Volante would voluntarily disappear. And he was offended. He says, I seriously doubt it. And he followed that up with, he has no financial problems, and he was very happily married. Well, what happened was that searchers waited until 2 o'clock for Volante to be back, because that was the time they agreed upon. He wasn't there. So between 2 and 3 o'clock, they shot off 3-round bursts, which you're supposed to do if a friend's missing in the woods. They got nothing in return. When they talked, one of the hunters heard in Volante's hunting area, he heard 2 shots at about noon. And he goes, I can almost guarantee it was Volante. That's what the guy said. So somebody heard something. Now at 4 o'clock, Volante's friends decided they better go into the woods and look for him. And they went in there. They shot off 3 rounds every 30 minutes. Nothing. And at dark, they pulled out of the woods, drove into Elkford, and got a hold of RCMP. So this was the last day of their hunt. So they'd been in this area hunting for 10 days straight. Now the next day, October 19th, it was snowing heavily. And Georgina was notified that her husband was missing. She got his brother and his family together, and they came to the Elkford Hotel in the town, and they made that their base camp for the police and RCMP. They got 25 to 45 searchers to help look for Volante. And at times they had as many as 50 searchers. The hotel opened up their kitchen, and the women cooked for the searchers every day. October 20th, 35 searchers and an RCMP canine were out in the field. October 22nd, 24 searchers and local police and 2 canine units were in the field. 23rd, heavy snowfall hindered the searchers, 2 dogs, and 24 searchers. The 26th was the last day of the search. They put a helicopter up, more dogs in the field, they got nothing. Now remember what I told you about this area and how many times Volante had been there. October 27th, well, the 26th was the last day of the search. The 27th, RCMP holds a press conference. And the article stated, baffled RCMP and volunteers have abandoned their search for a 38-year-old hunter who went missing 9 days ago in the bush. You don't hear that wording too often. Baffled. Next paragraph. Elkford RCMP said that the area is surrounded by highways and power lines, and how he is missing is mystifying. They then said that the hunter had been in this area for 27 years. This is the quote. Even an inexperienced hunter should find their way out. There's absolutely no way he got lost with 4 hunting companions around him. That's strong language, folks. I might have heard that 2 or 3 times in a 4,000 or 5,000 searches. People just don't say that. To say that is an implication that something's really wrong. So what are the options under those circumstances? Obviously medical. If he had a heart attack, stroke, fell over out in the woods and died, I'm sorry. I keep saying this all the time. Dogs would have found him. I know the dog teams that I worked with as a policeman would have found him. No doubt. Second option is an incident similar to Carl's in Missing 411, the UFO Connection, if you've watched that. By the way, let me stop for a second. Do many of you have Apple TV? My movies are back up on Apple TV right now. And 2 of the 3 are on Amazon right now. And they're going to be up on Tubi probably in the next week. So they're going back up this month for sure. Just a rotational issue, no big deal. But just so you know, I encourage you to go out and watch those 100 times. They're free. And you know, while I'm on it, the people complain that, oh, you know what, Dave, you're always asking for Kickstarter money and you're always asking for cruise money and book money. This is all free to you guys. This is free to you. I'm giving my movies to you for free. So, back to the options. What happens if Volante decided to voluntarily disappear? Now what I find intrinsically odd about that is on the 10th day of the hunting trip, he's going to suddenly decide to walk off with no car, no vehicle. That dog don't hunt. And one of the other hunters said that he heard 2 shots go off from Volante's hunting area, and they were positive it was his rifle. So what is that about? Predation. Grizzly bear attack. Possible always. I mean, there's grizzly bear all over BC. But if a grizzly bear attacked Volante, there would be a scene there. Because he's not going to just roll over and die. He's going to fight for his life. There's going to be drag marks. There's going to be blood. If you really have the gumption to do it, go to Google or to Yahoo. Turn the filters off so that they don't filter the image. Type in grizzly bear attack and take the filters off and then hit image. And you'll see what a grizzly bear attack looks like. There's no mistaking it. Canines would find it. Volante's gun, coat, bullets, no blood, no body, nothing's found. Where did it all go? And then the big one. Canines never find them. How is that possible? Right? Unless it's a 411 case. How is that possible? Now, I looked ahead 15 years. He was never found. And as the RCMP stated, you may be asking, well, why would they say power lines? Well, you follow power lines long enough, and you're going to come to a road. You're going to see dirt roads intersect where there's maintenance of the power lines. They're just an easy way to walk out of an area and find help. So they were all over this area, just like other roads surrounded the area. So the idea that he couldn't find his way out didn't make any sense to the RCMP, especially since he had hunted here for 27 years. In my mind, I keep going back to that Carl scenario. Now, I didn't do it this time, but you're going to have to trust me that BC has a lot of UFO sightings. If you watch the UFO Connection, I filmed part of it up there for a good reason. And I try not to make a mountain out of a molehill, but I also try not to ignore possibilities. There were no good answers of what happened to Volante. I wish I did know. So, those are the 2 cases today. I greatly appreciate you being here. And remember, kindness. It's all around us. And if you look, you'll see it. Think about the times where you're checking out at the supermarket and you're looking at the next line over and the clerk there is being real friendly to their client that they're helping, and maybe yours isn't so friendly. Maybe they're not so happy. Sometimes I just make it my task to make that person smile. Maybe they're wearing a colored shirt. That may not mean anything, and maybe you don't even like it, but hey, that's a really nice shirt. Oh, you think so? Thank you. Get a rise out of them. Make them smile. Costs you nothing. And you know what? Service workers, those people are working for us so hard, 24/7, and they get relatively low pay, and many times they're abused verbally. So let's be kind. Be safe.
If you listened real carefully, you heard Huck snoring. Paulides out.